Hi everybody, it's Dr. Dave Winiarowski, co-author of The Immortality Edge from www.drdavesbest, that's drdavesbest.com. I want to introduce you to what I'm going to call the Immortal Hips series here. In the following video segments, which were shot live in Boca Raton, Florida in December of 2010, concomitant with the release of our book, The Immortality Edge, I am bringing you some additional information that I think you absolutely need to have. Now, our book is loaded with incredible information, and I think everybody on the planet should read it. There's no other book like it out there. But it is a book, and that means it's a static piece of information. It can't grow and change, and I can't put any more than the publishers allowed me to put into this book. So, in order to give you additional value, I've created this series, Immortal Hips, where two of the top trainers at the Institute of Human Performance in Boca Raton will guide you through what I consider the absolute essential exercises to keep your hips young, supple, and keep you moving through the rest of your life as a young person. Why did I choose the hips? Well, the hips connect the lower extremities and the upper extremities, and as a physician I can tell you most of the pathologies or problems that we see in the knees and the low back are actually due to problems in the hips and pelvis. So we want to get ahead of that, we want to fix that, and we want to keep you young and supple for the rest of your life. I hope you enjoy the information on Immortal Hips. Thank you, and don't forget, get our book, The Immortality Edge. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all major booksellers. All right, everybody, it's Dr. Dave. I'm here at the Institute of Human Performance once again in sunny South Florida, Boca Raton. And here to help me understand some important concepts is one of the top trainers here at IHP, Mr. Adam Brush. Adam, what are you going to show us today?
I'm just going to show you a different way of doing some hip mobility exercises, trying to gain some flexibility through the psoas. Might be a little bit different than what everybody's doing for your typical hip flexor stretch. So let's show you, just try and take you through 3 steps and show you what we're doing.
Beautiful. Take it away, man.
So the first thing we're going to do, this is about a 16-inch box here. So the first thing we want to do, we're going to put my left foot up on the box, but it's really the right hip flexor that we're stretching. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, we want to make sure that our toes are lined up completely straight. We don't want that back foot to be turned out at all. Okay. So both feet are going to be perfectly straight. And we want to make sure I'm going to drift forward as I'm stretching that right hip flexor. I want the heel to stay on the ground to help maintain that stretch of the hip flexor. Okay, so that heel comes up off the ground, I've lost the stretch. Okay, so your entire pelvis has got to be moving forward and backward as a unit. Exactly. Now, critical point. Additional thing, before I start moving forward, I want to make sure that I try to contract. If it's the right hip flexor I'm stretching, I want to contract the right glute. Before I even move that right glute, once I activate that right glute, it's going to help open up the hip before I even move. So here's what it looks like.
So hands are extended, right glute is squeezing, pelvis is drifting forward as a unit. Notice he's not just tucking his spine in the so-called athletic ready position. This is not just a spinal tuck and protection. This is the whole pelvis moving as one. And the arm raise is to actually put a little exclamation point on it.
Now, part 2 of the move, I'm not going to take my left foot on the box. I'm going to focus on the right hip flexor for right now. Now, part of the hip flexor, psoas major, actually attaches to the lumbar spine. So it's really important that we get some lumbar movement in order to help with that psoas major. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to drive my right hip forward to help get a little bend through my hips. So a little side movement here. Even though you might not feel this one like the first exercise I showed you, we're still going to get some flexibility from the psoas. Now the third movement, we're going to maintain that left foot, focusing on the right hip flexor, hands up overhead, and again I want to get a little rotation because that psoas major is attached to the part of the lower lumbar. We're going to drift, we're going to twist rather, and kind of slightly drift forward. All the while, you got to maintain that heel needs to be flat on the ground. So everybody's foot distance to the box from the floor to the box is going to be a little bit different.
Adam, while you're doing this, I noticed there's not a huge amount of torque on the hips. You're still keeping them in that sort of planar motion. I mean, I think a lot of tendency, a mistake people would make is to try to twist that hip out excessively, and that puts more of the stretch on the glutes rather than the hip itself. The glute means rather than the hip. So,
maintain a nice natural.
Right.
Now, those are the three basic movements on the right hip. On the right hip flexor, we would do the same thing on the left hip flexor.
Okay.
Before we get to the left hip flexor, one last stretch that we want to put on the right side requires me, you might want to come around on this one, Dr. Dave.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right hip flexor that we were working before.
Okay.
Put my right foot up on the box.
All right.
Get a nice split stance here with the foot up on the box. Up nice and tall again. Activate that right glute.
Good. You're driving that pelvis at least a little bit forward, is that correct, Adam? And you're squeezing the glute. And you're performing essentially a split squat or a lunge, whatever you want to call it.
Bulgarian squat, I think some people call it. Yeah, and that's just that drill all on the right side. Of course, we do the left side.
Right.
Still on the right side here, and so that's a great drill. What you can do is a warm up for your clients before you even get going. Great lower body warm up.
Phenomenal drill for anybody who runs as part of their sport or is a runner, because everybody knows runners have very tight hip flexors, very tight adductors, very tight hamstrings, very tight gastroc, and there isn't a whole lot of places you can take your flexibility and motion from left. You're left with the lumbar spine, and that's why we see a lot of people with significant lordosis, because they take it from the place they shouldn't. Thank you, Adam. That's awesome stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you again.